Teamwork Arts podcast, ladies and gentlemen. The idea here, of course, is to go behind the scene and try and figure out the thoughts behind the actions that animate the people who make the art. And today we have the incredible Vidya Shah with us. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely wonderful to. I've been a long-term fan of the music, so it is a joy and a pleasure. Ever since the age of 12, it seems the melodies have been your friends. Yes.
So, the thing about the internet is it just picks up random stuff and then it's etched for life. So,
Isn't it?
So some announcer obviously said at the age of 12,
and the Carnatic classical. I was like a little surprised.
Well, actually, music has been literally a part of my life from the time I was born because like a lot of good, tamrams, I grew up in an atmosphere of music. My mother plays the Saraswati Veena, my sister's a Carnatic musician. So, in a sense, there was no escaping for me.
For sure.
And eventually I also started learning with a lot of hesitation, but yes, I had to succumb. So,
so when was it? I mean, for the record that you that you
let's
started
set
with
the record right.
Yes, it's important, isn't it? Because Wikipedia in the first paragraph are powerful weapons of knowledge, aren't
Because
they?
I tell you, it's the ultimate, source of truth.
Yes.
Or
now.
so it's become. No, around then, 9, 10 is when I remember. Actually, when I was 12, my sister was performing, so I sat on stage with her. So maybe that's how it got sort of interpreted in that way. But yes, music started.
And then, of course, there was a lot of learning that was involved as well because you.
So, I often say it's like Riyaz and Talim. These are these are essentially two cornerstones of any musician's life.
For sure.
Talim is, who you're learning from, the rigor that you go through in the process of learning. And Riyaz is how you sort of deal with what you learn.
For sure.
And there's a lot of drudgery, there's a lot of hard work. And it's also a mysterious world in many ways,
Sure.
because your guru will arrive on time. I had a teacher who was very, very meticulous. He would arrive at 5 in the evening, and every Thursday I would get up in the morning and start praying, I hope he gets fever and he doesn't arrive today, And of course my prayers were not heard by anyone. And he would arrive, and it was really like, it was like a Prem Chopra moment for me, the villain has arrived. But yes, you go through that rigor, you go through the drudgery, and then there is the moment of transition when you start enjoying it. So,
sure.
yeah.
There's also, of course, now with we live in the age of instant fame, and the seduction of glamour has sort of, glossed over the grime that goes behind the education. And education is, of course, a very, very important part of any art form, so to speak. And there's always been that debate about natural talent versus hours and hours of riyaz. Where do you stand on that debate?
I'd like to believe I have a bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel that some element of aptitude is essential. Some element of aptitude which could then become talent, and which could then become potential that needs to be harnessed, and so on and so forth.
Sure.
But if you have aptitude, then you stand a better chance of becoming a performer, let's say.
Sure.
So even if you have not learnt, for example, we've had greats like Manade Saab, Kishore Kumar Saab, who have not formally trained.
Sure.
And they were, we all know they were brilliant musicians.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So clearly it was a thing of aptitude, it was a thing of talent. They had a flair for it, let's say.
For sure.
But if you have a bit of both, then it's really, the best of both worlds, if one can say. So yes, I think I do have it in my blood.
Sure.
And my father, who never trained, was an exceptional singer. So I guess somewhere, the genes did their work.
They do.
And then, of course, like I said, I had my...
Now, of course, increasingly technology also seems to be doing that work as well.
Yeah.
I would like to assume that you come from an analog age where where the power of the vocal cords was higher than the power of a tweak on a software. So a lot of people are using technology to make music as well, which is not to diss it in any way or whatsoever. But the raw power of music to me would always be watching a performer in front with nothing but the power of that talent between us, separating us. Technology seems to have taken that away from us a little. Would you agree?
Well, technology is like a double-edged thing, you know. I
Sure.
mean, yes, it has made the production of music. It has given it different forms and possibilities, and we may agree with some of those possibilities and disagree with others.
Sure.
So I don't think we can write it off in one way or the other.
Right.
But the flip side of technology is that, you know, it has allowed for, say, someone like me. I come from a tradition which is very, very, you know, which believes in grammar, which is very structured. But suddenly, because I have exposure to so much music because of that technology, you know, so I can bring other influences into my singing, which may not have, I mean, it was much more dogmatic earlier when you didn't have technology in the picture. So I think there is both good and bad to technology. But the bad, definitely, yes, it takes away from, like what you pointed out. There is a certain rawness about the fact that you can manage analog as well as you can manage a microphone. I think that's the thing. That's the difference that I feel with or without technology does.
Also, I think mistakes are what make art human, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, you know, a friend of mine used to tell me, एक आध गलती होगी तो कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता है, दिल से गाना चाहिए, you know. So there is something about music which should reach out to you, not just at a technical level. It should also reach out to you emotionally. So many people, so many thousands of my friends in the audience don't understand necessarily the technicalities of the music I sing, but it appeals to them because there's an affect, there's an emotion associated to what I'm singing.
And it does appeal to the heart, which makes it a passion, doesn't it?
Exactly.
And then, of course, the one thing that's intrinsically associated with passion is exploration, which takes time. Right. And in today's age of everyone talking about reduced attention spans, the exploration of music, do you think, has it suffered in any way?
You know, I can talk more confidently from the point of view of music that I practice.
Yes.
I mean, I can't make a generalization. But from my own experience, if you look at how Indian traditional music has survived over centuries now,
Sure.
I think it is, I think that suggests that it's not just about speed and technology and attention span. There is something which is, there's a beautiful word for it in Hindi, which is tehrav.
Yes.
And it has that, you know, traditional music has that tehrav, which makes it possible to exist across centuries.
Sure.
It therefore has a certain resilience, which makes it so appealing. So yes, there are, you know, with the advent of popular music in a very imposing way, let's say, it has taken away from the languor that people used to enjoy earlier.
That's a lovely word, yes.
But that's not to say that the beauty of that doesn't remain.
For sure.
You know, so
For
it's
sure.
just a choice that people make, and
And of course, you are in a unique position to say that because you've seen the audiences change, so to speak, because you've been exposed to audiences for such a long time. How have you seen the audiences change from the time that you started or that you remember to now when you're performing in a pandemic year, so to speak?
I have to say that you're making me sound like a really old person, by the way.
Fine wine, I assure you, Vidya. Fine wine.
No, but really, jokes apart. I have had the opportunity of singing to really a very, very eclectic, wide range of audiences. So, for example, you know, every time I sing at the Jaipur Lit Fest, you know, they have music is such an integral part of the JLF scenario, and they've been around now for more than 10 years, and I've been associated for almost that long. It's not that I'm singing every year, but I feel very closely associated with the festival, and the kind of audiences that I meet there, you know, their hunger, their passion, their excitement, and how they look forward to an evening.
Sure.
You know, I met someone yesterday at the opening, and she said, "Oh, you know, I remember this thing that you did at the Hawa Mahal. You know, it was part of that heritage event that you had done, and it was such a magical experience." So that's what one really lives for, right? As an artist, it's that it has made a difference to a set of people. Hey, that's great. It doesn't always have to be, you know, like, oh, she has 6 million followers, or he. It doesn't necessarily have to be, scale doesn't have to be the defining parameter.
I think we are living in the age of tyranny of type, isn't it? I mean, we live under the tyranny of numbers, but sometimes you have to ignore that, isn't it?
Well, it is. I just feel that should not be the only way to look at something. I'm not saying it's not exciting to sing to a crowd of 5,000. Hey, yes, of course, it's lovely when people are, jiving to your music, sure. But having said that, even if you have a discerning audience of 25 or 50 who want to engage with your music at a much more intimate level, which is what traditional music allows you to do, and which is fabulous.
There's, of course, the practice of art, and then there's the responsibility of art, which you seem to be taking quite seriously.
Shouldering the burden.
And quite lightly it sits on your shoulders as well, which is, but you seem to be taking the responsibility of art quite seriously.
I would steer clear of using words like responsibility, but yes, in the sense that I feel very committed.
Right.
And I feel that, I come from a tradition which is largely an oral tradition, right? So Guru, Shishya, Parampara, all of that is very much a part of it. But I've had the privilege of a mainstream education as well. So I try and see whether I can combine the two privileges that I've had and make my music and make the music that I practice more accessible. So when I do productions, like I've been performing with William Dalrymple, a couple of his books we do as in a performance format. Sure. So The Last Mughal, The White Mughals, and now of course we are working on some of his other new books as well. So that is a great way of locating history, of talking about the music from that time, and also engaging in literature and music.
Sure.
So it opens up many doors. Similarly, I do a project on women who sang on the gramophone record through a project that I call Women on Record. It's about putting them on record.
Wow.
So that is again stories, song, visual. There's so much archival material. So the moment you create a story or a context, your audience is immediately drawn to what you're. Okay, now what's she trying to say?
Right.
There is that. And then if at the end of it, if your audience goes away feeling, hey, that was fun, I think I didn't know this, So I like to create that effect.
Sure.
I like to create that impact, because I feel that demystifies this whole thing, this this hawa that we make, classical music, as if it's like this heavy thing that, I want to stay away from it. So you unpack it, you find ways to unpack it. And I think the more and I enjoy doing it thematically, because it allows me also to research, it allows me to compose, and it's very exciting to see how there is such a continuity in tradition.
Absolutely. And as you said, you do not shy away from social issues as well as content for your music as well.
Yeah, so I mean, all this is, if I'm talking about women on record, there's definitely a gender element that I'm looking at. There's an element of technology that I'm looking at. There's an element of sexuality, sensuality. All of that intersects,
of course,
in a project like this, and it also helps audiences. I don't mean to sound condescending when I say helps audiences, but I'm just saying that it's my effort, let's say, to make it seem simple and fun.
Sure. Sure.
So my social responsibility to that extent, yes, there is an advocacy element in whatever I do. And you were talking about the pandemic year. I've set up a trust where I'm trying to facilitate lives of musicians, and it's not in my capacity to do financial assistance. That's not where I'm coming from. But there are many other roadblocks that musicians face.
Sure.
You have to be much more online, for example, now.
Right.
And a lot of musicians feel like they would like to put something up, but then they don't know how to use their, they just, कोई record कर रहा है, उसका यहाँ forehead कटा हुआ है, या mic बहुत दूर है. So I'm running, for example, a series of workshops on how to create smart productions with your little phone. And we offer, suggestions on what could be the simplest way in which, what kind of a mic can you buy for like $500.
Lovely.
So doing a series of workshops like that with young musicians.
Sure.
Then for the older ones, I'm trying to see whether I can create some kind of a network which makes healthcare more, easier for them.
Sure.
There are a lot of musicians who are, dealing with everyday illnesses, blood pressure, diabetes, so on and so forth, can barely meet ends. But if you have something even more serious, then where do you go?
Sure.
So in a situation where I come from a community where there is no social security. So then how do you create layers of support?
Of course.
So that's what, to that extent, yes, I am very socially committed.
There's also the attribution of intent that has become a bit of a norm in today's day and age, where everything is seen through the lenses of sometimes cynicism, sometimes intent, sometimes more fraught terms that need not be articulated now. But have you had to face any of those now in these times of maybe narrowing of the intent or of the experimentation space, so to speak?
I think there are two parts to your question. One, you're talking about the intent as in
Yes.
terms of how it gets perceived. Is that what
Yes,
you mean?
yes.
And you mean experimentation as in a new genre itself that is evolving?
Yeah. So one, the more social aspect of it, and two, the more artistic aspect of it. So with the social issues that you have, intent gets attributed quite easily in today's day and age, and opinions tend to be quite freely distributed. And of course, there is this whole debate about the shrinking space of doing things without intent being attributed to it, so to speak. So, have you had to face any of those problems in the work that you do?
You know, it's really a case of कुछ तो लोग कहेंगे, लोगों का काम है कहना. You know, it's really
Right.
that, and I feel that if that is going to start deciding or directing what one feels very passionately for, in fact, I feel that for a lot of us, it's more than passion. You know, it's actually it extends to the idea of junoon, which I feel is a little more than passion. You know, it's almost like passion with obsession.
Sure.
You know, but in a
Yeah.
healthy way. In a healthy way. So yes. So as far as intent is concerned, I feel that one should just do what one's heart beckons one to as an artist in the creative sphere.
For sure.
And if you're uncomfortable and if you're just doing it just to sort of please the gallery, then there is a problem. Then it shows in
Right.
your in your creative expression.
Of
I feel you can't get away with it because audiences are just way too intelligent. You can't just you can't be a scam and get away with it whatever you want. So yes, as far as the experimenting space is concerned, I think there's just some fabulous new stuff that is happening. But my only rider to all the new stuff that happens is that I believe that there are two things that one should not compromise on. One is in the grammar of the music that you practice, whatever that might be.
Wonderful.
You know,
Yes.
even if you're a guitarist, then you have to stick to your grammar. If I'm a classical vocalist, then I can't say I'm singing Yaman and sing Bhupali. I can't do that. So I have to stick to the grammar. I mean, that much respect I need to give my body of work. So that is one, and the other is that you understand the framework in which you're creating your new work. It shouldn't be a copy paste thing. You know,
Wonderful.
because
Yes, of course.
that's another अच्छा track बज रहा है, अच्छा हाँ ठीक है ये बंदे गा दो उस पे. I find that a bit problematic because not that I will do injustice to the bandish, but I feel I will do injustice to my gurus and the fact that just because it's an oral tradition where we are not so bothered about copyright issues, intellectual property right, you can't just you can't just sort of pick up anything and paste it on that without attributing the source.
Of course.
And that doesn't happen at all. It doesn't happen at all in Indian music, and that in the experimental space bothers me.
That's food for thought, of course. That's absolutely.
I've heard bandishes of my guru's guru, and I'm like, hey, I learned this for like 5 weeks. I was slogging over this, and some random dude will come on stage, and and that I feel, as long as it's properly credited, as long as there is due diligence observed on these parameters.
And that's
no
basic
issues.
respect as well.
Exactly. So as long as, like I said, grammar, आप बेसुरा नहीं गा रहे हैं. दूसरा, जिसकी चीज़ है भैया बोल दो कि भाई इनकी चीज़ है, हमने इसको नए तरीके से समझने की कोशिश की.
बिल्कुल.
खत्म.
And the future, you see nice slivers of hope, golden rays of sunshine in the future of music?
This last year has really, I think, set us off track a little bit.
Sure.
So, I'm always hopeful. I wouldn't say that, there's no pessimism in that sense, but I am a little nervous because I feel that it's going to take a while for things to come back to some. It's not just about, the fact that the vaccine has come and then, programs are beginning to roll out. Yes, that's a great sign, sure. But I feel, I hope that there hasn't been any sort of a psychological setback,
sure.
To how performances will be, received. Having said that, the flip side is that I've been listening to a lot of, discussions on the psychological aspects of a pandemic like this. And one of the things that has come back as a refrain is how culture is going to play such a crucial role in handholding people into that feeling of normalcy. So there's much to hope for.
And I'm telling you, hope is a great way to end a podcast. And we'd like to thank you for your time and for your thoughts, and of course for providing something that we all need a little more of, which is food for thought. So I'm hoping a lot of people who listen to it will chew.
Thank you. I'm always grateful to Teamwork, because I think they've understood culture and the need for it in so many nuanced ways it's lovely to be a part of what they do.
And it's lovely to have you on our podcast. Thank you very much, Vidya Shah.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, sir.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Teamwork Arts Podcast.